Welcome, dear students, to this revision class on Middle English period from your HER paper. So, in this class, we'll discuss the main topics that you need to cover just before your exam. We'll discuss a few short answers as well as the essay questions. So the first and the foremost question, which is very important, is about Norman conquest. So you can expect at least two or three questions from it for short answer questions as well as for your essay questions. This can be asked. Sometimes it would be an essay question. You need to comment on the impact of Norman conquest in England. So I hope you remember a few things about this Norman conquest that we have discussed earlier in our class. Alfred the Great defeated the Danes and confined them to the north of England. And in 1066, you need to note this date, 1066 AD, the English king Edward the Confessor died and Harold II claimed the throne. William of Normandy, that is the Duke of Normandy, with the support of the English Church, invaded England in 1066 and defeated the King Harold. And what is the name of the battle in which Alfred the Great defeated Harold II? It's the Battle of Hastings. In 4 years, the Normans killed most of the English nobility and divided the land into estates known as fiefdoms, ruled by the French speaking barons who are loyal to William the Conqueror. So, this William of Normandy, who is later called, who is this Duke of Normandy, as became ascended the throne of England. So, what are the things that you need to remember here? One is the date 1066 AD, and Duke of Normandy, that is William the Conqueror. He is later on called as William the Conqueror. Invaded England with the support of the church and ascended the throne. And the first and the foremost thing that he did after ascending the throne is to destroy the English nobility and brought along with him the French nobles. And he made changes. He reformed the feudal system. So that is the first and the foremost thing that you need to understand. That is the political part. Coming to Anglo-Norman literature, now first let me ask you another question. I think you remember, right? Who spoke English language? Only common people spoke English language at that point of time, and the clergy, they used Latin, while French was used by the aristocracy in the palace. And the production of Anglo-Norman literature was quite practical in keeping with the character of the Norman people, because this Norman French influence of this Norman French is seen in the literature, and much of it consists of religious tracts and other works meant for general learning. And to continue with feudalism, the political system brought to England by William the Conqueror, all of the land belonged to the king, who granted land to nobility called barons. Do you get? So the entire kingdom, the land belonged to the king, and it was divided and given to nobles who are called barons. And these barons are loyal to the king and had to raise armies to fight the king's battles and pay taxes to support his court. Did you get it? So each baron, they will have a troop, a group of soldiers, you know, and as and when it is needed, the king would call these barons, and the troops will help him to fight the battles of the king. These barons granted land to the lesser nobles below them and required services and tax from them. And these nobles or barons, they didn't work in the land, but only the peasants or serfs worked in the land. At the very bottom of the social order was this class of bondsmen known as peasants or serfs. So this is the hierarchy under feudalism. King, then under the king you have barons and lesser nobles, and the lowest level in the hierarchy, you find the peasants or serfs. So you can expect one short answer on feudalism as well, or the reform, how William the Conqueror reformed feudalism in England. The lives of these peasants, it was terrible. They were the property of their feudal lords and could not leave their land or even marry without the permission of the landlords. And they were not given enough food. They suffered from various diseases, and occasionally a serf could earn his freedom by some exceptional service to his lord. And this class of freed serfs are called freemen, who later on grew to become merchants and traders and artisans. And another thing that is important as far as this Norman period is concerned is the influence of the church. At no time in the history of England was the influence of church greater than during the medieval period. The Roman Catholic Church had tremendous power, money, and influence. The head of the church was called Pope. Much of the literature of that time was also religious in nature. Henry II, who became the king in 1154, was despised the fact that church had more power than he did. He couldn't accept that fact, and he wanted to curb some of that power by appointing his friend Thomas Becket to the archbishop's seat in Canterbury. He expected Becket to go along with his views and support his every wish for the change. Instead, Becket defied royal policy and appealed to the Pope. The Pope supported Thomas Becket, which enraged the King Henry. Some of Henry's knights misunderstood Henry's rage, and in 1170, four of them went to Canterbury, the shrine in Canterbury, and murdered this Archbishop Thomas Becket in his cathedral. Henry quickly condemned the crime and tried to atone for it by making a pilgrimage to Canterbury to Becket's tomb. He built a shrine to his friend, and that shrine became an example of religious devotion. And it became that shrine of Thomas Becket at Canterbury became a place of pilgrimage. So, you need to look into that. When we come to Canterbury Tales, we'll again refer to this shrine of Thomas Becket. Another important thing that you need to notice during this Middle English period was the growth of towns. During this period, towns were growing rapidly, and people grouped themselves into associations called guilds according to their vocation. So you'll have people who work with leather together, people who go for fishing together. So as these guilds became very powerful, some of them became corrupt as well. Also, as towns grew, many combined into cities. With a growing population, cities also came up during this time. Another point that you need as far as the exam is concerned is the Black Death that happened during the medieval period. It was during this period, around 1340s, this Black Death or this bubonic plague. You have heard so much about the pandemics nowadays, right? So at that point of time, that was also some sort of pandemic, you can say, a contagious disease caused by this bubonic virus that caused the death of so many in England. It killed almost one third of the population in England, and it is called Black Death. Then, later part of the medieval period, as this black plague waned, so did the feudal system, and along with feudal system also lost its power as time went by. And many peasants, they started revolting and against this noblemen, and this nobility lost its power. And that rebellion is called Peasant Revolt of 1381. So അത് നിങ്ങൾ ഓർത്ത് വെച്ചേക്കണം. That is the Peasant Revolt of 1381. After this black plague, the peasants, they started questioning the nobility. Jack Straw and Wat Tyler, rebelled in demand for individual liberty and human rights. So that is one major thing that happened during this period. And then the idea of chivalry and romance emerged once again. This code of chivalry, loyalty, valor, the medieval romances, characteristic features of medieval romances is also seen during this time. Another short answer that you need to look into is the War of the Roses. It began in 1453 when King Henry VI suffered his first bout of madness. Parliament appointed his cousin Richard as temporary head of England until Henry was able to return. And Henry recovered briefly, and Richard was forced from office. But Richard was not willing to leave without a fight, and this caused a civil war in England, which is known as the War of Roses. And why is it called War of Roses? Because the two sides, they took two roses as their symbols, a red rose and white rose. A House of York, that is who the people who sided with Richard, whose family symbol was white rose, against the House of Lancaster, who supported Henry, and whose family symbol was a red rose, and that is why it is called War of Roses. The House of Lancaster ultimately won the Civil War in 1485, 30 years later. So please remember these main points regarding the War of Roses. It can be asked as a short answer question. And if it is an essay question, if medieval period is asked as an essay question, just mention all this War of Roses and Black Death, Peasant Revolt. Don't go into detail, but mention it in two or three lines. And coming to the medieval literature, there were romances, and there is one thing that happened during this period, medieval period, that is holy crusades or trips to the holy land, holy wars to recapture Jerusalem during this period. Europe supported and fought in these wars, and the knights, they thought that it is chivalrous to fight for the holy land. Romances were, and then we had romances where again we have knights who went in search of the holy grail, or who went to save some damsel in distress. Romances with stories of adventure and dealt with the exploits of knights. They would present a series of tests or trials of the knight's virtues, and finally the knight would succeed. Most famous is the tales of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. These tales were handed down orally until written around in 1135. And there is this influence of French romance. We can see that influence of French romance on English romances. Another important thing is the introduction of printing press in England in 1476, when William Caxton introduced movable type of printing press to England. So that also actually helped to standardize English language. Very important poet of this time is Geoffrey Chaucer, who is later called the father of English poetry. He ranks second only to Shakespeare as England's great writer. He wrote Canterbury Tales, which is a series of verse told by different pilgrims on their way to the tomb of Thomas Becket, and I have mentioned earlier, right? So this is actually a very beautiful story where you have different pilgrims going to visit this shrine of Thomas Becket, and on the way they were telling stories, narrating stories to each other. Then we have ballads, which are songs meant for the common people, and there are many ballads which are anonymously written. Um, it's about the stories of some knights or queen. Like there are many ballads which were popular during that time. Nut Brown's Maid, Sir Patrick Spence. Then we have romantic stories of Robin Hood. Another important development about in medieval literature is the origin of drama. Drama originated during this period. Morality plays, mystery plays, miracle plays, they emerged at this point of time. These morality plays represented abstract virtues and vices as actual characters. But on the other hand, mystery plays, they told the stories from the Bible. But miracle plays, they were about the lives of saints. You can look to this, you can listen to this class on origin of drama. So I'm not going into detail now, but for your exam, it's a very important question. You can get short answers as well as essay. Sometimes the essay might be origin of drama, or it can be a pre-Shakespearean drama. You have to write the same answer. Sometimes you will get short answer questions on morality plays or mystery plays or miracle plays, or to name a morality play, and so on. Then other famous events that happened during this period, and also very important as far as your exam is concerned, is Magna Carta that happened in 1215. It limited the power of the king. It's like a constitution caused by Henry II's son John, because he was a very cruel and heavy taxer, and Parliament forced him to sign this treaty. And another thing that you need to remember is Hundred Years' War over the possession of French land. That is also another possible short answer question. And when you mention this Hundred Years' War, just mention Joan of Arc, who helped France to win back its land. That is also another possible short question. Then now the very important question, that is the translations of Bible that happened during that time. And it was John Wycliffe who finished the first complete translation of Bible into English. So as you all know, Bible was in Latin, and only the clergy could read it. The common people couldn't understand Bible. But late during the last part of the 14th century, we have John Wycliffe, a reformer, the morning star of Reformation. He's called the morning star of Reformation, translated Bible into English. I hope the main points are clear. Please go through the available notes and the videos and other classes uploaded in the Google Classroom as well as in the YouTube. And if you have any doubt, please free to ask. Thank you.